Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another family and community engagement Power Hour. My name is Angela Fullwood, and I am the supervisor for family and community engagement. And this is Black History Month. We did a four-part series, and today is the last of our four-part series, and I'm so excited because even though this is the last of our four-part series, we've kind of decided to keep this thing going because we're just amazed at all the things that we're learning about the history of Hillsborough County and Tampa. And so I'm excited to have today who is Paul L. Sheehy. And before we get started, I want to let everyone know as an attendee, you will not be able to be heard or seen, but please use a Q&A to write any of the questions that you may have for our panelists, as well as in the chat. So you can use either one of the two features and we will be able to field any of the questions at the end of the presentation, but feel free to write any throughout the session. So let's get started with that. Today, we have Dr. Paul Sheehy Jr. Dr. Paul Sheehy Jr. is a podiatric surgeon and physician. He has been in private practice for over 20 years. He is a fellow of the Academy of Ambulatory Foot and Ankle Surgery. Dr. Sheehy is also a member of the American Podiatric Medical Association, the Florida Podiatric Medical Association, and the Hillsborough County Podiatric Association. He has been performing laser procedures since 1990. He received his laser training from Winsky Hospital in Chicago, Illinois. Dr. Sheehy is a founding member of the International Aesthetic Foot Society. He has received extensive laser training from the American Society for Laser Medicine and Surgery. Dr. Sheehy is from Tampa, yes, woo-hoo, and a graduate of Tampa Catholic High School. He received his Bachelor of Science from Talladega College, his Doctor of Podiatric Medicine from Scholl School of Podiatric Medicine in 1989 in Chicago, Illinois, and he completed his residency from Tuskegee Veterans Medical Center and his fellowship at the Iowa University Aesthetic Medical School. I don't know if I said that right, but pardon me if I didn't. He is the son of Dr. Paul L. Sheehy Sr., who we are honoring tonight and will share this presentation with you. With that, Dr. Paul Sheehy Jr. Hi, Dr. Sheehy.
Hi there, Angela Fullwood. I wanted to thank you, Ms. Fullwood, for inviting us to be on this program today. I've attended several of your other programs and they were all outstanding. I also wanted to give a shout out to Dr. Lewis, thank you, and also the principal of Sheehy Elementary, Ms. Gadsden Yarborough. And I have to acknowledge my sister, Dr. Sheehy's daughter, my sister Paula Sheehy, who's also a teacher. Wanted to talk a little bit about Paul Sheehy Sr. Paul Sheehy Sr. was born in Tampa, Florida on February 29th, 1912. He was the one of 7 children to be born to Joseph and Anna Lorraine Sheehy. Next slide. This is a picture of where the Sheehy clan started. Dr. Sheehy's grandparents, his great-grandfather, Joseph Sheehy, was born in Ireland in 1850. He migrated to Okay, you hear me? You can hear me now? All right, let me start all over then. All right. You didn't hear anything I said? You did? Okay. Uh, as I said before, Dr. Sheehy Sr. was born in Tampa, Florida. He's one of seven children, three boys and four girls. Um, this slide in front of you is where the Sheehy clan started. This is a picture of Dr. Sheehy Sr.'s grandfather, Joseph Sheehy, who was born in Ireland in 1850. This is a picture of his mother, Phyllis Sheehy, Phyllis Moncour Sheehy, who was born in 1852 in Nassau, Bahamas. Um, they were married in the Bahamas and they moved to uh, Key West. Next slide. This slide is a picture of Dr. Paul Sheehy Sr.'s parents. This is Mr. Joseph Sheehy, born in 1878, and his wife, Anna Lorraine Sheehy, who was born in 1888. They were both born in Tampa. Mr. Sheehy had five other brothers, and they were butchers. They were originally cowboys in Key West, and they learned the farming trade in Key West. And when they moved to Tampa, they started a butcher shop in West Tampa. Next slide. This is a picture of Paul Sheehy in around 1912. He was about 17 years old. This was taken from a book called The Negro Blue Book of Tampa. This book was about 100 pages thick, and it had all the social clubs, all the prominent quote unquote Negroes of Tampa of that day. Also in this book, which if you can get a copy of it, it would be great. I have a copy of it. There's a picture of George S. Middleton, whom the school, Middleton High School, was named for. He was a member of the insurance, the first and only Black insurance company in Tampa. He was a founding member, and his picture is in this book called The Negro Blue Book of Tampa. Next slide, please. This is a picture of my parents, Dr. Paul and Mrs. Mary Sheehy. This picture was taken in 1965 at the Delta's Queen of Hearts Ball, which Mrs. Sheehy founded, and it was a scholarship program for girls, and it was a debutante ball in 1965. Next slide, please. Dr. Sheehy Sr. was he was a pretty good athlete. He played football and basketball. He graduated from Booker T. Washington High School in the class of 1931. On this picture, there are, this is the football team, and the Paul Sheehy and his brother, Valentine Sheehy, were good football players. Paul Sheehy was also the president of his class, his high school class. He was the star of the class play. He was voted most likely to succeed, and he was quite a man there. Next slide, please. Now, Paul Sheehy Sr. He graduated from Booker T. Washington High School in 1931, and he went on to, uh, at that time, Florida A&M FAM-C College, and he was a graduate of 1936. He received his Bachelor's of Science in 1936 in biology. He was an honor student. He had a full academic scholarship. He was president of the Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity undergrad chapter. He was senior class president at FAMC. Um, Also, I wanted to note that he had three other members of his siblings were also attending FAMU at the same time. His younger brother, Joseph Valentine Sheehy, he would go on to become a principal in Tampa. His sister, Mrs. Nathalie Sheehy Smith, his sister, she became a future teacher after she graduated from FAMC. His other sister, Mrs. Ava Sheehy Brown, was also a FAMC graduate. Next slide, please. His professional career. Dr. Sheehy was a veteran of the U.S. Army. After he finished A&M, he got drafted into the Army. He was honorably discharged in 1937. He moved back to Tampa, and he was a teacher in science, biological sciences at Middleton High School. Back then, the wages were so low for teachers. He eventually met a, another Tampanian, Mr. John Williams, and Mr. Williams was a Pullman porter. If you've seen the movie George, it's all about the Pullman porters and how it really was up a much better career. It was a much better career path for Black men in the 30s and 40s. Anyway, Dr. Sheehy became a Pullman porter, and he worked on the Silver Star Railway from 1940 to 1946. Now, when he worked on this railroad, this was a train that went from Tampa to New York. And while he was working, he saved up enough money so he could eventually go to medical school. In 1951, he received his doctorate of medicine degree from Meharry Medical School. After Meharry, he went back to New York to Harlem Hospital, where he did his medical residency. After his residency, he came back to Tampa, and he opened up his private practice, and he was also appointed the chief of staff at Lily White Hospital, which was one of two Black hospitals of the day. The other one was Clara Fry, which was in West Tampa. Lily White Hospital served East Tampa. Clara Fry served West Tampa. He practiced medicine from 1953 to 1980. He provided exceptional medical care and provided free physicals for all the children in Hillsborough County, and also provided, if you didn't have any money, you weren't turned away. There was never a patient who came to see Dr. Sheehy that he wouldn't see, regardless of their ability to pay. He was really a humanitarian. Next slide, please. Since we're talking about Black History Month and education, I want to talk about a little bit about his siblings first. As I just said, Paul Sheehy Sr., he married Mary Sheehy, my mother. She was a teacher and a librarian at Booker T. Washington Junior High School at the time. My mother passed away in 19 68, and in the 80s, my father remarried Dr. Sandra Wilson Sheehy. Dr. Wilson Sheehy was the first Black and first female graduate with a PhD at University of South Florida. She also became a college provost at Hillsborough Community College, and she also became a Hillsborough County commissioner. Dr. Sheehy's other siblings, well, no, his siblings were Joseph Valentine Sheehy. He was a school principal. Roscoe Sheehy was a school principal in Birmingham, Alabama. Nathalie Sheehy Smith, a school teacher. Ava Sheehy Brown, school teacher. Delbert Sheehy Bing, his oldest sister, school teacher. Evadna Hollinger, a social service professional, Tampa. You know, it was quite an achievement for in the 1930s and 40s for a whole family of Black children to go to college and be successful. Um, Now, their children also followed in the path of their mothers and fathers. And we have the current generation of college graduates. Dr. Ronald Sheehy, college professor, provost. Um, he was also president of Lincoln University in Pennsylvania, also provost of Prairie View in Texas. Dwight Sheehy, he's a retired math teacher, high school. Dr. Paul, well, me, let's see, Dr. Robert Bing, he's a college professor. He received his PhD in social sciences, political science from Florida State University. His sister, Kim Bing, is a college graduate. Paula Sheehy Snow, she's a teacher here in Hillsborough County. She received her master's degree. Uh, Deborah Ann Sheehy, college graduate. She received her master's degree from UCLA. Dr. Omari Sheehy, he's a dentist here in Tampa. Paul Sheehy III, my son, he's a Morehouse College graduate. Lisa Sheehy, FAMU graduate. Kwame Sheehy, Morehouse College graduate. And Joy Armstrong, well, she's really my cousin, but she's like our sister. She kind of helped raise us. She's a graduate of Talladega College. Next slide, please. This is a picture of all the Black physicians of their day. Um, on the top left is Dr. Adams. In the middle top is Dr. Andrew Jackson. On the right, he was a general surgeon, Dr. W. Andrews, general surgeon. He's the son of the founder of the Florida Sentinel, C. Blythe Andrews Sr. Um, in the middle there is Dr. James Brookins. His son is also a physician in Tampa. And on the bottom left is Dr. Johnson, also a physician in Tampa. And on the right there, you see Dr. Paul Sheehy. Next slide, please. Okay, Dr. Sheehy, they had a memorial that was put together at Booker T. Washington Junior High, and they paid tribute to all the graduates at Booker T. And as you can see here on the left, there is county on the education board, Mrs. Reddick, Mr. James Hammond, who was a Booker T. Washington alum also. His wife was also a teacher at Booker T. He was a electrical, one of the first Black electricians here in Tampa. Miss Odom on the left, and also the administrator at Booker T, the principal at Booker T. Washington High School there. I can't remember her name though. Next slide, please. These are the, next one is talk about the offspring of Dr. Sheehy. This is my family. This is my wife, Deborah Ann Sheehy. This is my son, Paul III, and myself. Next slide, please. This is the daughter of Dr. Sheehy. This is Paula Sheehy Snow. This is her family. This is her, this is her son in the back, Paul. This is his son on the left, Paul. And this is her granddaughter, Natalia. Uh, Mrs. She, Mrs. Snow is a teacher at Barrington Middle School for the past 23 years. And next slide, please. This is just a family portrait of uh, my two sisters, I suppose. This is Joy Armstrong, who's really my cousin, but I call her my big sister, our big sister, and myself. Next slide, please. Um, Dr. Paul Sheehy was, he was a great man. He was a good father. He was a physician. He was an educator. He was a Christian. You know, my daddy never missed mass, never, never. My daddy would wake up at 7 o'clock to take me to another church to be an altar boy, come back home, change clothes, and go to church himself. He was a Christian man. He was a leader. He was a kind man. He was a humanitarian. Um, I can remember many stories of some of his patients today are my patients, and they tell me stories about how their relative um, were, they knew were going to pass away, and Dr. Sheehy would stay up with them and just hold their hands all night until they made their transition. Um, some of the he I have too many people tell me how he delivered their children. He did broken arms, pulled out bullets. Uh, I can go on and on, but I'm not. Um, all I can say is I have to salute him and just say, you know, hey man, he was a great person. Really, I wish he was still here. So that's my presentation, and thank you.
Well, thank you for that awesome presentation. I learned so much about your dad, Dr. Sheehy. It's awesome. Now, we are going to, as you see, we have a lot of panelists today. So let me get through introducing our panelists for tonight, and then we'll get to some questions. First, we have on the screen Paula Snow. She's 23-year educator, graduate from Hampton Institute. She received her master's from Nova Southeastern University. She is currently a family and consumer science at Barrington Middle School, and the daughter of Dr. Sheehy, whom you just heard about. So there she is. Welcome,
Thank you.
Ms. Snow. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Um, Tracy Brown, she is the Chief of Climate and Culture. Thank you, Tracy, for being with us. We
Thank you.
have we have Dr. Felita Lewis. She's the Executive Director for Family and Community Engagement, and my direct boss. Thank you, Dr. Lewis, for being with us. We also have Dr. Pansy Houghton. She's the Executive Officer for Compliance. Thank you, Dr. Houghton, for always being here and supporting us in our Black History Month series. And I'm so delighted to also have Mrs. Delia Gadsden. She is the principal, the proud principal. I already know she's going to say it. The proud principal of Sheehy Elementary School. Thank you for being with us. And you all can unmute your microphones whenever we're ready. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Lewis and panelists or attendees. If you have any questions, start asking them either in the chat or in the Q&A section.
Thank you, Angela. And Dr. Sheehy, what a treat it has been to learn more about Dr. Sheehy Sr. So we thank you for taking time out of your schedule tonight to share with us and our attendees. And Ms. Snow, we also thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
What a treat it has been. And as Angela stated, we are certainly going to launch off of this and continue to highlight the trailblazers that we have in Hillsborough County moving forward, not just for the month of February, but year round. So we hope to also bring you back to share even more. So Ms. Snow and Dr. Sheehy, we have a few questions for you before we open it up to the attendees. So either one of you can respond to the questions that we have. So history shows us that African-American people continue to overcome obstacles and barriers. So talk about, if you will, some of the ways that Dr. Sheehy Sr. successfully overcame some of his own adverse situations, including being one of the first African-American physicians practicing medicine in a segregated society. And then as a follow-up to that, we certainly would like to hear, what do you have to say to those who don't see the relevance in some of those accomplishments?
I'll take that one. First of all, my dad made a way for himself. He was totally self-sufficient in that in order to finance his medical career, he taught biology at Middleton High School, and he rode the train. He was a Pullman porter for the railroad to finance his medical school education. There were no handouts or even scholarships that would compensate for the entire medical school experience. Though he had an undergraduate scholarship, this was on him. So he was determined to do it, worked very hard, persevered, and then became a doctor. With that said, he also practiced medicine in Tampa's 29th Street in East Tampa, one of the areas that is known as our underserved communities. He not only served there, but he lived in that area as well. So he was very much a part of the service of giving to our community. I think one of the biggest obstacles that he had to face was when my mother passed away. I was 11 years old, my brother was 13 years old. And my dad was a single parent before that even became a referred to term. Can you imagine a man raising 2 kids alone 50 years ago? That was just unheard of, but here we are. He always had either his sister to care for us, or my maternal grandmother came and lived with us to make sure that we had that female influence and that we were well taken care of. And I can tell you, I think I had a babysitter, which is what they ended up being in the final stages of our high school years, till I went off to college. So he made sure we were he kept up with us and everything that what we were supposed to do. He kept everything as normal as possible. We went to the same Catholic school. Nothing in our lives changed except that we didn't have our mother's presence, but she was always there in spirit. I can tell you that. And he is today with us as well. But he was an awesome influence on the community. My dad was a very misunderstood person. I think he was way before his time. He was a Renaissance man. He was named for Paul Laurence Dunbar. He was a reader. He was a thinker, man of very few words, but whatever he said, it was something that needed to be said. So, and people have no idea what a humanitarian he was and how humble he was. And I worked at his office at the time I was 12 years old as a receptionist, but he would always say to me, Paula, you never bite the hand that feeds you. And, these people who come here, you are their servant, you serve them. So he always remembered that, where he came from and how he was going to get there was because of his kindness towards humanity. And I really appreciate that.
Wow, thank you. And let's give a shout out to the single dads doing what your father did. What an amazing obstacle to tackle. Every life is unique and has a story to tell. What makes Dr. Sheehy's story unique, we think, is that he comes from a family with several African American males who have earned their doctorate degrees. Will you briefly share with us highlights of those experiences, those achievements, and what this means to your family, to other Black men, and the greater Tampa Bay community?
Yes. um, I don't know. I didn't get a chance to meet my grandparents, so I don't really know why it was that all of his siblings were college bound. It must have been their parents who instilled in them, even though they weren't college educated people, but they must have instilled in their children the importance of education. I do know that my parents were avid readers. I used to clean up my daddy's office, my Dr. Sheehy's office on Saturdays, and he would have books all over the place that he read. He read everything. On Sundays, my mother was a librarian. She had 20 newspapers, and she sat and she read every one of them on Sunday morning. They both valued education, and they really stressed it. But all of his siblings stressed education. Um, I think they recognized that the key to success was not athletics. As a matter of fact, me and my daddy used to argue about that because he wasn't pushing athletics like I thought he should in my life. And he told me, he said, look, son, he said, I don't want you to be a quote unquote a dumb athlete. He said, if you get the books, you can be an athlete, but you have to get the books first. I never forgot that. And my mother used to tell us, no matter what the cost, if it's for your education, there is no cost. You'll get it. So I really think that you know what really kind of discourages me when I talk to young people in elementary school and younger is that they have this fixation on being an athlete. They want to be football players and basketball players, and this is what our culture pushes. But we only excel at that as black people because this is what we push. This is what is in our DNA now. But I do believe that if you change the paradigm and you made education the focus of our community, we can do it. I have a lot of, not to be stereotypical, but it's a stereotypical in a good way. I have a lot of Jewish friends, and their thinking is that they know you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to be an engineer, you're going to be a teacher. Only certain professions they're allowed to be, and there's a reason. And I, one of the, not to get ahead of myself, but one of the things what I talk about too is, you know, having an education doesn't mean you have to have a degree. You can have a career in plumbing and have a great and open up 5 plumbing companies. You can be a barber and be a successful entrepreneur. That's I'm through preaching, but I really believe that. I'm done.
And it's okay. We want you to preach, Dr. Sheehy. This is a platform for you to do that. Because leading into the next question, we'd like to hear from the personal side. What does Black History Month mean to you personally? And why do you think it's important for everyone to learn about our history? Either you or Mrs. Snow.
Oh, you got to unmute. Paula, you're muted.
Sorry, guys. Please forgive me. Woo. Okay. First of all, Black history is American history. Most of what we observe is Black excellence is in the field of sports, entertainment. We have contributed so much more than that. Let me just reference something before I get started on my little soapbox. First of all, the people who came over in ships were not slaves, they were enslaved, okay? They were kings and queens, they were contributing citizens, successful people, they were enslaved. Okay. Enslaved and free Black Americans built the nation's capital, the White House, the Capitol building, Georgetown University, Monticello, and more. They built Wall Street in New York. Every time we experience anything in life, African-American history is somewhere in the midst, whether we realize it or not. You have a potato chip, that's George Crumb. Ice cream scoop, Alfred Crail. Did you know that Nathan Green was a master whiskey distiller who trained Jack Daniels to make his potion? Then we have Abby Fisher, who invented the famous chicken and waffles. Emmett Chappell created a safe food supply for astronauts. Norbert Rulio developed a method for frying sugar. So I'm saying to you, we are so much more than athletes. We're so much more than just. We're everywhere. We're in every part of America. We are Americans. And it makes me sad that we only celebrate or acknowledge Black history for 28 days of the year, whereas we live Black history every single day, whether we realize it or not. So I think it's very important for us to commemorate Black History Month, such as it is, because there's so many boys and girls who don't have anything to aspire to. And we need to wake up those sleeping giants and that sleeping genius within them to let them know that they too are capable of so much more, and that people who look like them have achieved with far less than what they have. So Black history needs to go on, and everybody needs to every day realize that we are not takers, we are givers, and we help build this country. The foundation of it and everything in between, we have a part at the table.
Well said, Mrs. Snow.
Amen.
Well said. Oh, you know how at the end of sermons they say, close the book, John, like we're done, like we can really just go right now. But it's so much more that we want to learn. And for that, I want to bring in the principal, the proud principal of Sheehy Elementary School, whom your father, Dr. Sheehy, is named after. Delia would like to say something before I start going to the participants' questions.
Thank you. And I just want to say it's an honor to be on this panel. I had the great pleasure of meeting Miss Snow and working with Dr. Sheehy, and his son also comes out to the school to read to our students. And I think it's so important because as a Tampa native, we need to make our history, our local history, relevant to our students. And by them learning about the man, the great man, and all about him, not just that he was a doctor, but that he was a veteran, that he was a teacher and a humanitarian, it really paints a picture of the type of citizens we want to create. And I think by them meeting his actual children and grandchild, that it just makes everything more connected and more relevant and achievable. And for them to know that their dreams can come true. And I know one of the things that we really push is that our kids get put in opportunities where they can compete in district and state competitions that are STEM based, and really just focus on that type of learning so that they can see that if they really work together and they read and research and put everything together, that they can get recognized and achieve great things.
Yes.
So it's just an honor to be on this panel. It's an honor to be the principal at Sheehy. It's an honor to know the family. And I just appreciate their continued support and hands-on support. They're always just a phone call away. And I think it's really great for our kids to see that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's get to the participants question. Here's a question for you. What do you believe are the reasons so many of your family were so successful?
Paula?
Thank you. I think so many of my members of my family were successful because, again, education was not even an option. You're going to college, you're going to school. The question is, which college? That was in my household. Again, coming from a large family of 7 children, um, they had to be self-sufficient. You got to work. You can't depend on anyone else to take care of you. And that was taught from a very, very young age, I think, all of our family members. And, thank God that we come from a family of readers and learners and those who took advantage of the opportunities, the gifts that God gave them, the ability to exceed in school, to excel in school. So I think just being encouraged to do so and not being given too many options, that was the nature of it. Because when I grew up, it wasn't if you're going to college, it's which one you're going to. That's it. So that was understood from day one. So,
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Um, uh, one of the participants would like to know what age was Dr. Sheehy when he went to medical school?
He, he was about 33. He he remember he had about 3 other careers before he went to medical school. He was a Pullman porter. He was a school teacher. Uh, so it took him a while to get there, but he worked hard. And the thing he did was he set goals. He set goals and he went about pursuing his goals. So what I tell the kids too is just like Michael Jordan is going to make that basket, he has to see the ball going through that basket first in his own mind. And then he has to do the mechanics and work hard to get that ball through the goal. That's the same thing you have to do with your career. You have to see it in your mind first and then go ahead and execute your plan.
Okay. One of the participants would like to know, in what ways are you and your sister like your father?
Um, well, okay. I'm like him in that he's a standard for me. So we practice, I mean, we have similar careers. So I always judge myself by what would he do? What would he do? I mean, uh, uh, so in that way, as far as being compassionate, my goal was always to make every patient feel like a king and queen. Now, I don't know if Paula, you may know more than me. I don't know if Daddy thought that, but I know that's what he did. He always respected his patients, always put them first. On Sunday, what we call the family outing was making house calls. He made house calls on Saturday and Sunday. And then after church, we would go by the lab to drop off the specimens. His life was totally consumed with, his practice. And I used to ask him, I said, man, why do you work like you do? He said, son, I really love what I'm doing. I love the people. And I'm like, man, I wish I could have a job like that, you know. But I have to, give my mother credit too, in that, man, we saw her read all the time. And, we had to use, not trying to be, not to be whatever, but good English. My mother was an English teacher. So I
Proper
couldn't, huh?
etiquette,
Yeah,
proper English, proper
yeah,
etiquette.
absolutely. And when she passed away, I was 13. You know, I lost my way. I mean, I was lost. I mean, I really, my mother was my foundation, and it took me a long time to get it together. And I too, like my father, didn't go to medical school until I was about 30 years old too, because I had to I had to find myself, and I had to learn how to set my goals. Even after I finished undergrad, I went in the service to sharpen my skills, to make sure I was going to be disciplined enough to go the long haul. So you do what you have to do, but you have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, okay, these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses. How can I work on my weaknesses and make myself a better person and be prepared to compete? So I guess that's the answer. Paula, I mean, now Paula was a smart one, okay? Paula was a straight A student. Paula never made a B in her life. Yes, she did. So anyway, that's the truth.
Well, it just came a little easy for me. That's all. But I think for me, I learned to be humble. Um, Many times people have no idea who my family is because I want you to know me before you know my background. And he was like, oh, you Dr. Sheehy's daughter? Yes. Dr. Sheehy's sister? Yes. Before you even know that part of me, I want you to know Paula first. Because this is just just as I am, unpretentious. Um, I love my students more than anything. I love my family. I love my grandchildren to death. But you know, um, my mother was a talker. And I was very shy for most of my life until I became a teacher. Now you can hardly shut me up. And I thank God for that because I was so quiet for so long that communicating is a gift. And I appreciate that. So my dad was not a talker. I am a talker. My brother's not really a talker unless he has to, I don't think. But me, I'm very outgoing. I'm very friendly. I'm not outgoing. I'm very friendly. But I was a daddy's girl. Enjoyed every minute of that. And you know, my daddy provided us with a good life with what he had. He exposed us to things. Uh, he always wanted what was best for him. He very, very protective. I mean, we were very, very sheltered, and we knew it at the time. Very sheltered. He was protecting us from what he thought was a world we were not able to handle. And I think he was right in his judgment. But thank God, here we are. We turned out okay. Near retirement. What can you say?
I think Miss Brown has a question.
Yes. Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Dr. Sheehy and Miss Snow. I've learned so much tonight. I've always heard about the Sheehy family, and it's been really wonderful to hear so much about who your father was and all of the accomplishments that he was able to achieve in his life. But I think one of the greatest accomplishments is the two of you, right? And what he's done for you. And so my question would be, and I think I know the answer very similar. Um, what message do you believe Dr. Sheehy, your dad, would have for young people of today's generation that are very impressionable, very influenced by all the things going on around them? And I think that would be really interesting to hear what you believe he might want to tell them, what message he'd want to send.
I think the message he would send to them is that you can't get around hard work. You can't achieve anything without hard work. I think he would say the reason why you see the athletes that we admire is because they put in the work. They work at their craft 16 hours a day. And that if you put as much energy into your studies, you can achieve the same thing. The same thing. Once you set up your goals, write your goals down. Write your goals down. Write them every day. Start out. Write it down. Write it down. Look at it. Think about it. Once you decide what you want to do, I think Dr. Sheehy would say, find someone who's doing what you plan to do. Find a mentor. Go to his or her office. Call them and say, hey, I'm a student at so and so. I want to be an accountant. Is there any way you think I can come by and spend maybe an hour at your office? I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, they'll say, sure, come on by. But the thing is, remember, hard work, perseverance, set your goals.
So would you say, because I see a question in here about during such trying times during the civil rights movement, what about Dr. Paul Sheehy's character? What are the things that made him such a fighter and so resilient? Would you say those things that you just talked about, or were there some other things that you saw in your dad's character?
I'll tell you a little story. Somebody told me. When my dad was a Pullman porter on the train, two of his colleagues came up to him and said, oh, you're sitting there reading that newspaper. Boss man's getting ready to come by and inspect your area. Dr. Sheehy kept reading the newspaper. He said, fellas, I do all my work to the highest level. He can come by all day and inspect my work, and it's always right. And he sat there and read the paper, and the man came by, did the inspection, and he was right. He always did everything the right way, the hard way, took the long road. He didn't take any shortcuts. And am I answering your question? I think
You
I'm.
are.
Well, uh,
You are.
I thought some of these stories of people. I didn't know him as a grown man. So a lot of the patients come to tell me, "Did you know your daddy did so and so?" And I'm like, "Really?" So that's one of the stories I learned last month from someone who knew him. That someone he told who anyway. That's the story.
No, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I love hearing stories like that. I do want to. Have you heard any stories about, because he uh Miss Snow said that he was a man before his time.
I know what I
Um,
got to say.
okay, go ahead.
The way you overcome civil rights problems,
That was gonna be.
okay, you look at the goal. You don't look at the obstacle. Prejudice prejudice, if you think about the problem too much, you can't focus on the goal. You have to see yourself achieving the goal. And you look at things like prejudice and whatever it is, okay, either I'm going to go over it, I'm going to go around it, I'm going to go through it. But either way, I am going to get to the other side of the mountain. I think that's the lesson we can learn from all of our ancestors, uh, if we look at their lives. Um, period.
Love it.
What do you think I have a question, and is what do you think that's important for this generation to know about your dad, like this particular generation?
The thing I want him to know, if he could do it, we could do it. He did it when the obstacles were 10 times as hard. I mean, not only him, but think of the things that his generation did. You know, they made it for us, they made it so much easier for us.
Yes.
They sat in at the counters. They took the beatings. They took the hoses. They took the abuse. They sat at the colored fountain, right? So we didn't have to. You don't have an excuse other than your own mind. That's the lesson we have to take.
Again, though, I think one of the things that we need to instill in our students is that being successful is not always about having money. You look at the entertainers and they're rich, but are they happy? Are they contributing? Are they giving back? Who are they helping except for themselves? There's so much more to life than money to indicate success. We have a whole world that needs something, and everybody has something they can contribute. What are you doing? We elevate, we make money our God sometimes, and that's our parameter for judging success when it should be so many more other
That is
things.
so true.
You know?
Yeah, I
So
agree.
our people need to really look at what success is other than money. Are you working on that cure for cancer? Are you helping with the COVID-19? Are you just going and volunteering and helping somebody? Are you feeding the hungry? There's so many things that cost no money at all. You can make a difference in your community. Okay, that's success. Not the car you can drive, the house you live in. Because you know what? Nobody knows what's going on in those houses and those cars. You can live in a mansion and be miserable. You could drive a Toyota like I have and be happy. So none of those things really matter in the grand scheme of things. Our values are sometimes misplaced, and that's everybody, not just African Americans. That's just everybody. Sometimes our values are not where they need to be at certain times. So happiness just comes from within, and you can't buy it. You can't envy it away. You can't wish it on yourself. It comes from hard work and achieving your goals and following the plan that God has for you, because your plan is not somebody else's. Okay, and vice versa. So we need to let me start preaching, y'all.
All right, so I know it's almost 7, but I do have one more question. This will be the last question for the night, and it says, "Good evening. This is the proud assistant principal of Sheehy Elementary School, and it's saying, listening to you tell your father's story and the accomplishments of his family, I see the grit that was instilled. What ideas do you have for teaching grit to the students at Sheehy?"
I just gave mine, so you go, Paul.
Mm, what I would like to instill in the students at Sheehy is that in life, it's okay to get knocked down, but you got to always get up. In life, you're going to have obstacles. They're going to be challenges, but look at them as only what they are, just obstacles. And like I said, either you go around it, you go through it, or you go over it. But you have to set your goals high. You have to work hard at them, and you have to believe that you can do it. You have to believe that you can do it. You have to see it in your mind first, and then work hard to do it. And I know that your foundation at Sheehy, because I come over there, I see what kind of teachers you get. I see what kind of messages you get. And the only person who can stop you is yourself, only yourself. So to me, your goals should be the sky's the limit. And like I said before, having a good education doesn't mean having a lot of degrees. And what I also wanted to say was, this is just a personal thing of mine. When you go to college, and if you go to college, pick a degree with a job at the end. Don't just pick a degree in sociology or psychology. Not that those are bad degrees, but you got to realize, okay, well, in order to get a job, I got to get a master's degree. And to me, there's nothing wrong with a career in the trades, being a great barber, being a plumber, an electrician, so on and so forth. Those are great careers. And don't let anybody tell you they're not. That's it.
There's a place for everybody.
Yep.
Angela, I'll let Ms. Edgecombe go first because her question was before mine. I saw her trying to get in.
Okay.
So we'll let her go first. You know I love her, so let her go first.
Mrs. Edgecombe.
Thank you very much. It really isn't a question, but thank you, Dr. Sheehy and Ms. Snow, for a wonderful experience today. Your mother was, of course, my sorority sister, and I spent a lot of time with her. Your dad was, just as you said, ambitious, unassuming, always a gentleman. I found something when going through some artifacts of my mother, and you probably have this already because you talked about all of the achievements of your father, but I have the 1931 yearbook of where your father was president of the class. At that time, my mother was a freshman. So if you don't have a copy of the actual yearbook, I do, and I would love to share it with you because I learned so much about him through that. And of course, today's experience really just amplified the great man he was and the kinds of things he contributed to our community. So thank you both very much for that. And if you want a copy of the yearbook, just let me know.
Ms.
Thank
Edgecombe.
you. Thank you.
Ms. Edgecombe.
Yes,
I
sir.
just received a copy of the yearbook from I think she was a classmate of yours at Middleton and at Talladega, Joy Armstrong. She sent me her mother's Booker T. Washington book. And
Okay,
also she told me to tell you that she remembers Candy and that she remembers your husband in high school at Middleton and what an outstanding gentleman he was. And he was before our time, but she talked all about you and your husband and we thank you for all the contributions that you all, the Edgecombes, have made to Tampa also.
well, thank you for that. And Joy and I were good friends. We were at Talladega about the same time. I think I was a senior. And please give her my best. And I also, so you got the yearbook. I was hoping that you said that you didn't have it and I was going to be able to present it, but I'm glad that you do.
Now, Paula doesn't have it. So I think I was going to make a copy to give to Paula. So Paula,
Awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know if she's offering or she's going to share it. I don't know if she's offering it.
Because my mother, my mother was a freshman at the time, so I'm going to have to keep it for our family's sake.
I understand.
Okay.
And Joy is listening, Miss Edgecombe. Joy's on the call.
Oh, hi, Joy. This is like a family reunion.
Yes. Okay, we're sorry.
Here we are.
Dr. Houghton, you had something?
Yeah, this is beautiful. I didn't grow up here. So Angela, I want to make a statement. Then I do have to ask Dr. Sheehy a question. You can see the link. Dr. Sheehy showed a picture of the guy that was an electrician.
Mr. Hammond.
Wasn't he in the first?
Yeah.
Mr. Hamilton.
Mr. Hammond.
Yeah, Mr. Hammond. Was he in the first presentation you did? Was he in part of that legacy story from USF?
Yes, he was. He was in. He was one of the speakers in the documentary. Yes. And he is named Hammond Elementary is named after him.
Okay, you can see all the linkages, kind of neat, but Dr. Sheehy, I'm quite interested. I was the one that asked the question about how old was your father when he went to medical school? Because I'm really intrigued that somewhere deep down inside, he knew he had a vision and knew where he wanted to go. But he ended up being a teacher, went in the army, he worked on the railroad. Then he went to medical school, finished medical school, and then became a doctor. And I think kids would be intrigued because it wasn't about the age, right? He didn't give up. He had a dream and he did whatever it took to get to the end of the dream.
Yes.
And I just find that quite intriguing. And you kind of followed your dad's footsteps, right? You didn't give up.
No, I didn't.
So
You're right. I wasn't conscious of it, but I look back on it and I'm like,
think
wow.
about it now. Yeah.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Never too old.
Right. And what you, Miss Snow, that's right. You're never too old, because some people say, oh, I'm 30. I'm not going to do this anymore. Oh, I'm this age, so I can't do that anymore.
Age of maturity, just a mature age.
Yes,
Where you can make responsible decisions that affect the rest of your life.
Right. So I just wanted to share one thing, and this is just a comment. And when I asked earlier about what message would Dr. Sheehy want to share, you, Dr. Sheehy and Ms. Snow, you both are living that message. And so I want to thank you both for what you do to exemplify all those things that you talked about regarding your father and his contribution. And so I know he's probably just celebrating now at looking at what you all have accomplished in your hard work, your perseverance, your tenacity, your commitment, your humility, your leadership, just all those things that made him the man that he was, that he also instilled in you all. So thank you so much for what you do. Thank you for giving back. Thank you for your time this evening. It's been amazing just to hear the story. And I'm edified by it. So thank you. And the hard work, the difference between what athletes do, they put in the work. So thank you, Dr. Sheehy, for using that analogy, because it really does resonate. Just putting in the hard work. Just thank you. It's been great tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Well, and yes, with that sentiment, I'm so excited. And just so you know, like Principal Gadsden, she talked about us knowing local, and we are really so bent on us learning about all of the African American achievers in our county in Tampa who have made a difference. And so we did a 4-part series, but we found out in the research that we can't do a 4-part series. This has to be every month, all year. So we're going to focus every month. We're going to do a power hour on an African American who's made a difference in the city of Tampa and Hillsborough County throughout the entire year. And so we thank you for starting. You all are the beginnings of this. And again, just like Dr. Lewis said, we'll probably circle back around, because your family, we saw all of we saw that list. So it's going to be some more Sheehys we're going to be calling on.
We'll be happy to serve.
Yes, thank you so much. This session is being recorded and it will be posted on our YouTube channel. You all will be sent the link to it, and if you subscribe to our channel, you'll be able to get all of the sessions once they're uploaded. Even if you don't attend, you'll be able to watch them. So I thank you, participants, for being with us tonight. Again, thank you, Dr. Sheehy and Ms. Snow. Your dad, Dr. Sheehy, was an awesome man, and I learned so much about him tonight. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for having us, and you guys be blessed.
Thank you so much. And with that, good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.